Look at your life right now and say it clearly. I can overcome this. I can get the results I want. I can do hard things. I can do great things. I will overcome my obstacles. I will achieve goals that today seem far away. But be honest. You're probably not living that way at this exact moment. You're not acting like someone who truly believes this. Think of your life as a territory. There is a point on the map where you want to arrive. Discipline, freedom, confidence, respect, stability. But right now, you're somewhere else. You're here, not there. And the distance between the two is not a desire, it's a price. So, the real question is simple. What needs to change for you to move from here to there? The answer is already inside the question: change. If you want to turn this into action, subscribe to the channel now and leave a like, because what comes next is a direct plan, no fantasy, for becoming the kind of person who does what they promise. Change is not adjustment, it's transformation. Many people confuse change with a tweak. A small adjustment here, a new routine there, a motivational video, and that's it. As if life were an app. You update a setting, swap a small habit, watch something inspiring, and believe that alone will reposition you on the map. But real change isn't that. Real change is not cosmetic. It's not waking up earlier while keeping the same mindset. It's not reorganizing your schedule while maintaining the same avoidance patterns. It's not upgrading the surface while, underneath, keeping the same silent agreements with laziness, excuses, and comfort. Real change is transformation. And transformation means something simple and brutal. You must become someone you are not yet. Someone who acts differently, thinks differently, tolerates fewer excuses, upholds higher standards, and decides with more firmness. The person you want to become has habits that the you of today still considers excessive. They have discipline that the you of today calls rigidity. They have consistency that the you of today calls luck. And this is where the real pain begins. Ego pain. Because transforming yourself requires a level of honesty most people avoid. It requires looking at your own behavior and admitting, my problem isn't lack of information, it's lack of execution. It requires acknowledging that you already know what you should be doing, but you're not doing it. And that shatters the comfortable narrative of, I just need the right method, I just need the right moment, I just need more motivation. In practice, the ego prefers any alternative that preserves self-image. It prefers blaming time, family, lack of money, fatigue, or the world. Not because these things don't exist, they do, but because it's easier to point outward than to admit an internal truth. The current version of you is not delivering what's required. And when that truth appears, it hurts for a specific reason. It removes your illusion of innocence. It shows that so far you may have been good at justifying, good at postponing, good at starting, but not good at sustaining, good at planning and weak at executing, good at imagining and poor at repeating. But that pain is useful. It's the turning point. Because once you accept that you cannot optimize a weak identity, you stop searching for shortcuts and start building character. And building character means building repeated behavior, choosing standards, choosing rules, choosing discipline, even without applause, even without motivation, even without feeling like you've become that person yet. Transformation does not happen when you feel ready. It happens when you decide to operate as the person you want to become before you feel like that person. That is the price, and it is also the path. Most people want the results of a disciplined life while keeping an undisciplined identity. They want to wake up with clarity, focus, and direction, but they go to bed late, live reactively, and call disorganization a phase. They want the reward, but not the process. They want the finish line without enduring the strain of the race. They want confidence, but they don't want exposure. They want to feel strong, but they avoid any situation where they might fail, make mistakes, or look inexperienced. But confidence is not born in comfort. It's built by repeatedly facing fear and surviving it. If you never expose yourself, you never prove to yourself that you can handle it. They want respect, but they don't want to uphold standards. They want to be taken seriously, but they change their mind every week, break promises made to themselves, and call inconsistency flexibility. Respect is not requested. It's a consequence of predictability. People trust those who consistently show up, do what they said they would do, and maintain standards even when no one is watching. They want victory, but they want comfort at the same time. They want growth without losing sleep, without pressure, without giving up distractions, without enduring psychological discomfort. But victory and comfort are opposites during the building phase. Comfort is a reward. Victory is a conquest. Those who try to mix the two end up with neither. It doesn't work because life responds to identity, not intention. Life does not negotiate with what you want. It responds to what you repeat. Every daily choice is a silent vote for the kind of person you are becoming. And the problem isn't failing one day. The problem is voting every day for the same weak version and expecting a strong result. High-level results demand coherence. They require your actions to match the life you claim to want. They require you to stop asking permission to grow and accept the invisible cost of discipline, doing the right thing when no one applauds, when it's uncomfortable, and when quitting would be easier. As long as you try to live like an ordinary person while demanding extraordinary results, frustration will repeat itself. The shift happens when you accept a simple, hard rule. Either you change the process or you give up the right to complain about the outcome. The choice has always been there. Life does not negotiate with your desires. It is not moved by what you want, what you intend, or what you promise yourself on Sunday night. Life responds to something else, what you do, and especially what you repeat. It responds to your pattern of action, like a machine responds to a command. If the command is weak, the output is weak. If the command is consistent, the output begins to change. Desire is cheap. Everyone has it. The difference is that some people turn desire into routine, while others turn desire into excuses. And life detects this effortlessly because it measures evidence, not intention. Evidence is schedule, repetition, delivery, consistency. Evidence is what you do when you're tired, irritated, unsupported, and unmotivated. That's why transformation begins when you accept a rule your ego hates. You must act like your best version before you feel like that version. You don't wait to feel disciplined to practice discipline. You don't wait to feel confident to expose yourself. You don't wait to feel ready to start. You start, and the feeling comes later as a byproduct. Because feelings follow identity, but identity follows behavior. You don't become strong by imagining strength. You become strong by performing acts of strength repeatedly until they become a pattern. At first, this feels fake. It feels like acting. It feels like this isn't me. But that discomfort is the sign that you're leaving the old character behind. And here's the practical truth. Your brain only believes you after you prove it. It doesn't believe promises. It believes repetition. Every time you do what you said you would do, you build internal credibility. Every time you break that agreement, you train your mind not to take you seriously. So transformation is, to a large extent, the process of rebuilding self-trust through daily micro-victories. Acting as your best version before becoming that version means creating patterns that don't depend on mood. It means treating your plan as a commitment, not an option. It means choosing the right discomfort and rejecting the comfort that weakens you. It's trading immediate relief for inevitable progress. And the sooner you understand this, the faster everything changes. Discipline stops being an emotional battle and becomes a procedure. Growth stops being an event and becomes a process. And you stop asking, "Can I do this?" Because repetition answers for you. Life doesn't need to believe, it simply reacts. And when your pattern changes, your destiny changes with it. The comfort zone trap. The comfort zone is not a soft bed, it is an elegant prison. It doesn't hurt you immediately. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. On the contrary, it welcomes you. It offers quick relief, constant distraction, and the feeling that everything is under control. But that comfort is only an advance, and like every advance, it comes with interest, high interest charged in the future. The problem is that the bill doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in installments. Frustration, silent regret, and that persistent feeling that you could be more, but never quite get there. Today, you avoid the effort. Tomorrow, you avoid the mirror. And without realizing it, what started as rest turns into stagnation. The trap is subtle because it doesn't present itself as giving up. It presents itself as rationality. You tell yourself, now isn't the right time. When things get better, I'll start. I deserve some time. Taken individually, these phrases sound reasonable. The problem begins when they become a pattern, when postponement becomes identity. Then something strange happens. You start desiring results that require pain, discipline, focus, respect, freedom, but you choose to live as if you deserve the reward without the cost. You want the harvest without planting, the medal without training, stability without crossing the initial chaos of building, and the mind supports this illusion. It creates sophisticated justifications to protect comfort. It calls fear prudence. It calls escape self-care. It calls laziness balance. All to avoid the one thing that actually moves life forward: daily confrontation with what you avoid. The right kind of discomfort, however, is not punishment. It is investment. It hurts in the present to spare you from a much greater pain in the future, the pain of looking back and realizing you traded growth for relief. The pain of knowing you had time, access, and choice, and still chose to stay. The difference between those who move forward and those who remain stuck is not talent, luck, or perfect circumstances. It is the willingness to pay the price early while it is still optional. Because there comes a point when life collects the debt either way. You either choose discomfort now or stagnation chooses for you later. Leaving the comfort zone is not self-violence. It is self-liberation. It is trading a comfortable prison for a difficult but honest path, and every step outside it is a silent declaration. I prefer the pain that builds me over the comfort that slowly destroys me. You want the body, but you don't want the training. You want the visible result, but you reject the invisible process. You want strength, definition, energy, but you avoid boring repetition, physical discomfort, and long-term commitment. You want the storefront, not the back room. You want income, but you don't want the skill. You want money, recognition, financial freedom, but you don't want to go through the phase where you're bad, slow, and insecure. You don't want to study when no one sees, fail in public, or be a beginner again. You want to extract value without first becoming valuable. You want peace of mind, but you don't want emotional discipline. You want calm without self-control, balance without boundaries, clarity without silence. You want to react to everything, absorb everything, drown in stimulation, and still feel centered. That doesn't exist. Peace is not the absence of external chaos. It is internal mastery. And when you finally try, when you decide to act differently, the first friction appears. Fatigue shows up, doubt knocks, discomfort manifests, and then you interpret it as a sign that it wasn't meant to be. As if life were telling you to turn back. It's not a warning, it's a test. Friction is not rejection. Friction is confirmation. It is the natural resistance between who you are today and who you need to become. If it were easy, there would be no transformation. If it were comfortable, there would be no growth. The price appears precisely because the path is legitimate. The mistake is not feeling resistance. The mistake is obeying it. Every real change begins awkward, heavy, and artificial. You feel displaced because you are, in fact, leaving your old place. That discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is proof of progress. The price was never a secret. Training is tiring. Skill requires repetition. Emotional discipline requires daily vigilance. The only illusion is believing you can skip this part. When you understand that, something changes. You stop looking for signs to quit and start looking for proof that you're paying the right price. And that's when the shift happens. When you accept the cost without drama, without victimhood, without negotiation. You pay the price today so you don't keep paying interest tomorrow. And from that point on, every step stops being a sacrifice and becomes a conscious choice made by someone who decided to grow. Discomfort is the toll of growth. There is no alternate route. Every road that leads to a higher level of life charges an emotional, physical, or mental cost. If you avoid the toll, no matter how much you want to arrive, you don't move forward on the map. You just keep circling the same places, repeating the same days, calling stagnation a phase. Most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they try to negotiate the price. They want to grow but ask, can it be without pain? Can it be easier? Can it wait until I feel better? And while those questions are asked, time passes, opportunities close, and the map remains the same. The person who wins is not the one who feels motivated every day. That's a dangerous myth. Motivation is unstable, volatile, influenced by sleep, weather, mood, and other people's opinions. Anyone who depends on motivation depends on luck, and luck builds nothing solid. Winners learn how to operate. To operate means to execute even while the mind complains. It means treating action as a procedure, not an emotion. It means waking up and doing what needs to be done because it's decided, not because you're inspired. At first, this feels cold, robotic, almost like losing passion. But in reality, it's the opposite. It's maturity. It's understanding that discipline doesn't kill desire. It protects desire from its own instability. The shift happens the moment you make a silent, internal, definitive decision. I will no longer negotiate with my resistance. You stop debating with fatigue. You stop asking fear for permission. You stop giving the spotlight to doubt. Not because they disappear, but because they lose authority. Resistance will always speak. It will always present convincing arguments. It will always promise immediate comfort in exchange for delay. The difference is that from this point on, you no longer respond, you act. And when action becomes automatic, something changes deeply. Discomfort stops being an enemy and becomes an indicator, a signal that you are exactly where you should be, paying the right toll, on the right road, heading toward a destination few have the courage to reach. The story of failure that becomes a legend. There is a common pattern in every story of mastery. First comes embarrassment, first comes the stumble, first comes shame. Before mastery, there is the moment when you look unprepared. Before respect, there is the phase where you are underestimated. Before authority, there is the experience of feeling small. This is not an exception, it is the rule. Every real growth trajectory begins with a break in image. You try something new and fail publicly. You expose yourself and realize you're not good yet. You discover, through the most uncomfortable route possible, that the distance between where you are and where you want to be is greater than you imagined. And that is exactly where most people quit. Not because they lack ability, but because they can't tolerate the initial shame. The ego panics. It wants to preserve the old identity, even if it's mediocre, because at least it's familiar. It prefers silent failure over visible learning. The stumble hurts because it strips away your excuses. It shows that the problem isn't lack of potential, it's lack of preparation. And that truth hurts more than any external criticism. That's why so many choose to run right after the first attempt. They don't want to relive the feeling of appearing incompetent. But those who master understand something different. Embarrassment is not a verdict, it's a gateway. It is the entry fee. It is confirmation that you've entered new territory where your old identity no longer works. If you never feel embarrassed, you're not growing. Shame, when used correctly, becomes fuel. It stops being something to avoid and becomes something to pass through. Not to humiliate yourself, but to refine yourself. Every repetition after the stumble reduces the power of shame and increases real competence. In the end, mastery is born from this contrast, the willingness to endure initial discomfort while skill is still invisible. Those who endure this phase build something rare. Those who flee it build only stories about what could have been. You try and it goes wrong. People laugh, you feel small, your body heats up, your mind races, and the first impulse is to disappear, to pretend it never happened. In that moment, something inside you either dies or is born. That is the decisive moment. Quit or reconfigure. Most people quit, not because they can't handle the effort, but because they can't handle the blow to their image. The ego goes into defense mode. It says, "This isn't for me. I'm not good at this. It's not worth going through this." And so the person preserves appearance, but sacrifices potential. Preserving image is comfortable. It allows you to remain seen as someone who could, someone with talent, someone intelligent. Because as long as you don't persist, no one can prove you're actually not good. The problem is that along with that protection, you abandon the only thing that builds strength: practice after failure. Those who become strong accept losing image to gain capability. They accept looking bad for a while, being a beginner in public, not having answers yet, because they understand a simple rule: image is fragile, capability is transferable. Image impresses, capability sustains. Capability is built exactly where the ego wants to flee. It is born from unglamorous repetition, corrected mistakes, and shame endured in silence. While image depends on others' opinions, capability depends only on your willingness to continue. Reconfiguring is not pretending you didn't fail. It is cold analysis of what went wrong, adjusting the method, and returning to the field. It is turning humiliation into information, replacing emotion with strategy. And when you do this, something shifts. Other people's opinions lose weight. Laughter turns into noise, because now you're no longer trying to look capable. You're too busy becoming capable. And that quiet, invisible shift is exactly what separates those who try from those who dominate. Failure, when used correctly, becomes fuel. Not blind rage, but cold focus. I will improve. This kind of person doesn't say, "My life is over." They say, "My training has begun," because they understand something rare. Humiliation is temporary, skill is cumulative. Humiliation passes quickly. It hurts, burns, lingers briefly, and then fades. Skill stays. It compounds. Every repetition, every correction, every silent training session stacks like bricks. One day you look back and realize you're supported by something solid. Most people invert this logic. They do everything to avoid immediate humiliation, and without realizing it, accept a much greater long-term humiliation, never becoming capable. Carrying forever the question, what if I had continued? That pain is not temporary. It stays. Those who choose training understand that today's discomfort buys tomorrow's freedom. Training when no one sees. Failing when no one applauds. Persisting when no one believes. All of it seems useless in the short term, invisible, insignificant. But it isn't. When you choose training, you are choosing the future. You're saying, I accept being bad now so I won't be limited later. You trade immediate validation for durable competence, applause for structure, comfort for capability. The compound effect works in silence. It does not announce progress. It gives no clear signals at first. It works like interest, small, almost irrelevant in the beginning, but inevitable over time. 1 day of training changes nothing. 10 days are barely noticed. 100 days change everything. And the most dangerous truth is that the compound effect works in both directions. Practice accumulates, but so does neglect. Every avoided day strengthens the version that runs. Every executed day strengthens the version that dominates. Both are growing. The difference is which one you feed. That's why the decision was never about talent or luck. It was always about consistency, about which pain you're willing to pay. The short pain of training or the long pain of regret. Those who understand this stop asking, is it worth it? And start acting like someone who has already decided. In the end, when skill finally becomes visible, the world calls it natural talent. But you know the truth. You know it wasn't luck. It was built by the courage to move through the invisible day after day, while the future was being constructed in silence. System beats motivation. Now comes the part that separates amateurs from dangerously consistent people. You don't need more motivation. You need a system, because motivation is an emotion, and emotions are volatile. One day you wake up energized, the next you wake up heavy. One day you feel capable, the next you feel behind. If your execution depends on this, then your progress depends on luck. Motivation is unstable by nature. It depends on your mood, the weather, your energy, what someone said, what happened that day, how much you slept, how much you ate, a comment that shook you, a piece of news that irritated you. And worse, it depends on your perception. Sometimes nothing happened, but you felt off, and that alone becomes a reason to delay. That's why so many people live in cycles. Monday excites them, Tuesday still works, Wednesday drags, Thursday negotiates, Friday quits, Saturday compensates. Sunday feels guilty. Monday promises again. Not a lack of ability, a lack of mechanism, a lack of structure that works when emotions don't. A system is the opposite. A system is predictability. Simple engineering that guarantees execution even on bad days. It doesn't rely on mood. It relies on rules, triggers, and environment. A system answers one question. What do I do even when I don't feel like doing anything? And whoever answers that wins. A well-built system has 3 clear functions. Decide for you before emotion decides against you. Reduce friction for what's right and increase friction for what destroys you. Create enough repetition to turn action into habit and habit into identity. That's why consistent people seem disciplined by nature. It's not nature, it's architecture. They don't wake up inspired every day. They simply have a defined sequence that starts almost automatically. Time, place, task, duration, no debate, no drama, no negotiation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is a bonus. System is the foundation. Motivation may give you speed for a few days. System gives you direction for months and years. Motivation helps you start. System makes you continue. And continuing is what creates results. When you understand this, you stop searching for the right feeling to act and start creating conditions to act. You trade emotional dependence for procedure. And from that point on, progress stops being a random event and becomes a statistical inevitability. A system is different. It is a set of rules and triggers that put you into action even when you feel unmotivated. A system defines what happens, when it happens, and how friction is reduced so it can happen again tomorrow. And here is the secret. When a system is simple, it survives. When it is complex, it dies in the first week. If this is making sense, subscribe now and leave a like, because from here on, I'm going to give you the practical structure to build your system without empty theory. What you want doesn't need to remain a distant dream. It needs to become schedule, procedure, and repetition. The three pillars: non-negotiables, environment, tracking. First pillar, non-negotiables. These are actions that happen regardless of mood, energy level, or daily chaos. They are not inspirational goals, they are operational commitments. Choose one or two daily actions that, if done every day, truly move the needle toward your goal. No more than that, 1 or 2, not 10, not 20. The most common mistake is confusing volume with ambition. A long list creates the illusion of progress, but dilutes focus. You do a little of everything, burn out quickly, and move almost nowhere. That's not ambition. It's well-disguised dispersion. Real ambition is selective. It cuts. It chooses what matters and accepts ignoring the rest for a while. Fast-growing people don't do more things. They do fewer right things consistently. They understand that energy is limited and focus is strategic. Non-negotiables work because they eliminate internal debate. There is no, should I do this today? No, maybe tomorrow. The decision has already been made. You simply execute. This removes emotional weight from discipline and turns action into routine. These actions must be clear, measurable, and possible even on bad days. They are not heroic tasks, they are sustainable ones. Things you can do even when everything feels off, because the goal is not to impress, it is to endure. When you try to maintain 10 new habits, the brain resists. When you maintain 2, it adapts. And when it adapts, repetition becomes identity. You stop trying to be disciplined and start being someone who follows through. Ambition without focus becomes self-deception because it makes you believe you're progressing when you're just busy. Focus forces truth. Either you did what matters today or you didn't. Simple, brutal, extremely effective. When your non-negotiables are clear, the rest of the day organizes itself around them. And from that point on, progress stops depending on extreme effort and starts depending on something far rarer: deliberate consistency. Second pillar, environment. Your environment either pushes you toward victory or pulls you toward defeat. There is no neutral environment. Make the right choice easy. Make the wrong choice difficult. Remove distractions. Prepare the field the night before. Reduce friction. Third pillar, tracking and accountability. What is not measured becomes illusion. You need a scoreboard, and you need a recovery protocol. It's not never fail, it's miss one day, never miss the next. This prevents the domino effect. With these 3 pillars, you stop relying on willpower and start operating with behavioral engineering. The compound effect and the winner's identity. What builds mastery is not a perfect day. It's a sequence of ordinary days executed with a high standard. 3 hours today seems small, 1 hour today seems small, but accumulated, they create a brutal difference in 90 days, 6 months, 1 year. Transformation becomes visible only after it is consolidated internally. First, you change the process. Then the world notices the result. And at that point, you understand the final rule. You're not trying to get motivated. You are building an identity. Identity is simple. It's the kind of person who does what they say they'll do at the time they said they'd do it, even when they don't feel like it. Before we end, think about this. If you continue exactly as you are, where will you be on the map in 12 months? Now think. If you apply a minimal system starting today, where could you arrive? And this is where I want to pull you into action. Which of these pillars will be your first step today? Non-negotiables, environment, or tracking? Comment exactly which one you choose and why. I read the comments, and your answer may help someone else begin.